So I am going to show you how to make a granny square. I'm going to use some baby blossom in Pretty Primrose, which is a chunky yarn, and I'm going to use some bonus chunky in, I think it's cream, because some of you like to change colours between rounds and some of you like to do it in one colour, so I'm going to show you both ways. The first thing we need to do is start it off. Now there's two ways of doing this. I'm going to show you one way first. I think this is the easiest way, and then I'm going to show you the hard way, but I'm going to continue with the hard way. Okay, so for the easiest way, we're going to make a slip knot. So we are just going to wrap the yarn clockwise around your finger, and then you're going to put your hook under the long bit, the bit that you're holding on to, and you're going to hook the short bit, which is the bit that is over here. And what you're going to do is pull it through, but you're just going to pull up a loop, and then you're going to get your finger out, and that makes your slip knot. Okay, and then you're going to tighten it, and then what you're going to do is you're going to chain 4. Now to chain, what we mean is wrap the yarn around the hook and pull it through. That's one chain. Wrap the yarn around the hook and pull it through. That's 2 chains. Wrap the yarn around your hook and pull it through. That's 3 chains. And then you're going to wrap the yarn around your hook and pull it through, and that is 4 chains. Once you've got 4 chains, you are going to insert your hook into the first chain that you made, and you're going to wrap the yarn around your hook and pull it through that first loop. Okay, once you've done that, you are going to pull this loop through this loop, and this is called a slip stitch. So you're going to pull this one through this one. Now what you have is a ring. Okay, so you can start your granny square is what we're going to make today. We're going to make a granny square. So what we need to do now is chain 3. So you're going to wrap your yarn around your hook and pull it through. This is chaining, so we need to chain 3. Wrap the yarn around your hook and pull it through. That's 2. Wrap the yarn, pull it through, and that is 3. Okay, now I'm going to frog this back to the beginning, but if you like this way, you can just wait here. If not, you can frog it. That's what we say when we just basically pull all the stitches out. And I'm going to show you how to do a magic ring, but a magic ring is harder. So what you're going to do this time is you're going to lay this short bit of yarn over your fingers. You're going to wrap the long bit around up to here. Then you're going to twist your hand over. You're going to make a cross, and you're going to hold it back with this finger here. Then you are going to put your hook under this bit and over this bit. You're going to pull this bit through. When you're through, you're going to twist, and then you're going to wrap this yarn around your hook, and you're going to pull it through this loop like that. That is a magic ring, and you can tighten it. Look, okay, some people prefer magic rings, some people, I'm not really fussed what you do, to be honest. Right, and then what we're going to do, so this is our first chain, so now we're going to chain 2 more. So wrap the yarn around your hook and pull it through. Wrap the yarn around your hook and pull it through. So that is 3 chains. Okay, so now what we're going to do is what I call a double crochet. I use American terms, not UK terms. In UK terms, this would actually be a treble crochet, but I use American. So to do a double, you wrap the yarn around your hook and you poke it through the hole. Okay, then you wrap the yarn around again and you pull it back through the hole. So then what you should have is 3 loops on your hook. Then you wrap the yarn around and you go through the first 2 loops, and then you've got 2 loops on your hook. Wrap the yarn around and go through the next 2 loops. That is your first double crochet. Now this chain here counts as a double crochet for this cluster. A cluster is basically 3 double crochets. So we're going to do another double. So you're going to wrap the yarn around your hook and you're going to poke into the center of your hole. Okay, then you're going to wrap the yarn and you're going to pull. Then you're going to wrap the yarn and you're going to pull it through the first 2 loops on your hook. And then you're going to wrap the yarn and pull it through the next 2 loops on your hook. So now you'll see you've got a chain, which we're counting as a double, and you've got 2 doubles. So that's a cluster of 3. So once you've got a cluster of 3, sorry, I'm just unwinding my yarn. What you need to do is chain 3. So you're going to wrap the yarn around and pull it through. That's 1. Wrap the yarn around and pull it through. That's 2. wrap the yarn around, pull it through, that's 3. Okay, so now you've got 3 chains, and then you're going to do 3 more doubles into this loop. So remember, you wrap the yarn around, you poke, you wrap the yarn around, you pull, you wrap the yarn around, you pull it through 2 loops, you wrap the yarn around and you pull it through 2 loops. But we are actually going to stop there for a second, because what we are going to do is get a stitch marker. Now, a lot of people, when they're doing their granny squares, they say, oh, mine ends up going into a circle. I think the reason that is because we forget where the corners are. So we are going to put a stitch marker in every corner that we make, so that we remember that that is a corner. And then we're going to make another double. So we're going to wrap around, we are going to poke, go to wrap around and pull, then we're going to wrap and pull through 2, wrap and pull through 2. Okay, and then we're going to make another double. So you're going to wrap the yarn around and poke, wrap the yarn around and pull, then you're going to wrap the yarn around, pull through 2 loops, and then you're going to wrap the yarn around and pull through 2 loops. So that's your second cluster of 3. Now you're going to chain 3. So 1, wrap the yarn around and pull, 2, wrap the yarn around and pull 3. So that's your chain 3. Then you're going to do another cluster of 3 doubles. So we're going to wrap the yarn around and poke, wrap the yarn around and pull, wrap the yarn around, pull through 2, wrap the yarn around, pull through 2. So wrap the yarn around and poke, wrap the yarn around and pull, wrap the yarn around, pull through 2, wrap the yarn around, pull through 2. Then we're going to get another stitch marker, and we're going to pop it into this chain space. That's what we call these, where it's made a chain and there's a space, it's called a chain space, and that's our next corner. Then we are going to wrap the yarn around and poke, wrap the yarn around and pull, wrap the yarn around, pull through 2, wrap the yarn around, pull through 2. Then we are going to make another chain 3. So to remember, to make a chain, you wrap the yarn around and you pull, wrap the yarn around, pull, wrap the yarn around, pull. Now we need to make another cluster of 3. So we're going to wrap, poke, wrap, pull, wrap, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2. Okay, so wrap the yarn around and poke, wrap the yarn around and pull, wrap and go through 2, wrap and go through 2. So wrap and poke, wrap and pull, wrap, go through 2, wrap, go through 2. Now we've very almost got our square look, but we need another chain 3. So we've got 1, 2 and 3. And then what we need to do is find the third chain. So this is the first, this is the second, and this is the third. And we're going to poke, we're not going to wrap it around, we're going to just poke the hook into the third chain. Then you're going to wrap it around and pull it through. Then you're going to pull this loop through this loop. This is your slip stitch. And that is the end, although I haven't put the stitch markers in, that is the end of your first round of a granny square. Now you'll notice that the hole in the middle is pretty big. I wouldn't worry too much about that. If you're using a magic ring, you can tighten it so it really doesn't matter, just by pulling the end. Don't pull it too tight though, because otherwise it will break. Right, now I'm going to make another video to show you how to do the next round. So this is part 2 of how to make a granny square, okay? So I've left off in exactly the same place. Now you need to decide, are you sticking with the same colour or are we changing colour? I'm going to show you how to do both, okay? So what we need to do is, we're not wrapping the yarn around, we are literally just doing a slip stitch. So we're poking into this V here, which is a stitch. So just poke, wrap, pull, and then you're going to pull this one through this one, okay? And then you're going to do the same into this stitch. So you're going to do another slip stitch, you're going to poke, wrap, pull, and then pull this one through this one. And then again, we are going to get into this chain space. We're going to start our first corner. So we're going to wrap the yarn around, no we're not, sorry, we're going to poke, wrap, pull, and then pull this one through this one. And if you're keeping the same colour, that is how you do it, okay? Now I'm going to show you how to change colour. So for this you need your trusty scissors. I'm just going to frog it back to where I slip stitched, so we're here, because I'm going to change colour to show you what to do. So I'm going to snip, and I'm going to snip a fairly long tail because I want to crochet over it eventually. But first we are now going to pull this yarn tail through this loop. That secures it and makes sure it doesn't come undone. So then that's your first round. If you are changing colour, I actually think it looks much nicer when you make a granny square and you change colour. So what you're going to do is, in your first corner, you are going to put your crochet hook in. You are going to make a loop with the end of the yarn, like this. And then you're going to put your crochet hook in that loop. You're going to pull the loop through the square, and then you're going to put this short tail over the top and hold it there. And then you're going to chain. So we need to do 3 chains. Now I'm at the same point. If you've chosen to stick with the same colour, you can carry on here. So to chain, remember, we wrap it around, pull it through, that's 1. Wrap it around, pull it through, that's 2. Wrap it around, pull it through, that's 3. And now we're going to do 2 more double crochets. So remember, to double crochet we wrap, poke, wrap, pull, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2. So we wrap, poke, wrap, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2. And now we're going to make the chain 3 for our corner, and we're going to remove this stitch marker. So we are going to go wrap, pull, 1, wrap, pull 2, wrap, pull 3. And then we're going to do 3 more doubles. So in every corner you need a cluster, a chain 3, and then another cluster, okay? So you're going to wrap the yarn around, you're going to poke, pull, then you're going to wrap, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2. And then you're going to wrap and poke, wrap and pull, wrap, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2. And then you're going to wrap and poke, wrap and pull, then you're going to wrap, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2. And that is your first corner on this round done. So we're going to pop a stitch marker in there to remind us that that is the corner. And then on the next bit, I'm holding this white bit over here so that I can crochet over it. Okay, so now we're not going to do any chain spaces here. What we're literally going to do is wrap the yarn around and poke it into this next chain space. And then we're going to wrap and pull, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2. And we're going to do another cluster of 3 here. So we're going to wrap and poke, wrap and pull, wrap, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2. Wrap and poke, wrap and pull, wrap, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2. And then we're going to do another chain 3 because this is our corner. So we're going to wrap and pull, wrap and pull, wrap and pull. And then what we are going to do is wrap the yarn around. We're going to do another cluster of 3 in here. Okay, so we're going to wrap and pull, wrap, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2. Wrap and poke, wrap and pull, wrap, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2. Then you're going to wrap and poke, wrap and pull, wrap, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2. And then you've got your next corner. So we're going to remove this stitch marker and we're going to put it in this chain space instead to show us that that is the corner. And then remember, we don't do any chain spaces here. What we do is we just wrap and poke into the next chain space. Wrap and pull, wrap, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2. Wrap and poke, wrap and pull. You're going to wrap, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2. Then you're going to wrap and poke, wrap and pull, wrap, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2. And these are called, in American terms, they're called double crochet. In UK terms, they are called treble crochet. Now we're going to make our corner again, so we're going to chain 3. So you're going to wrap and pull, wrap and pull, wrap and pull. And then we're going to make another cluster of 3 here. So another cluster of 3 doubles. So we're going to wrap and poke, wrap and pull, wrap, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2. Then we're going to wrap and poke, wrap and pull, wrap, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2. Then you're going to wrap and poke, wrap and pull, wrap, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2, and that's your next corner. So we're going to move this stitch marker up to the next corner, and this will help us on the next round. So then we're going to wrap, and we're going to go straight into the next chain space. So we're going to wrap, poke, wrap, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2. We're going to do 3 doubles into here, okay? So wrap and poke, wrap and pull, wrap, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2, wrap and poke, wrap and pull, wrap, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2. Then we're going to do 3 chains. So we've got wrap and pull, wrap and pull, wrap and pull. Then we're going to do another cluster here. So we're going to do wrap and poke, wrap and pull, wrap, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2. Gonna wrap and poke, wrap and pull, gonna wrap, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2, wrap and poke, wrap and pull, wrap, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2. And now you'll see, oh, let's move our stitch marker. And now you'll see that we don't need any chains here. So what we're going to do is we are going to slip stitch into the 3rd chain again. So we've got 1, 2, 3. Now to slip stitch, we just poke, we don't wrap it, we just poke, we wrap and pull, and then this one goes through this one. Okay, so I'm going to change colour again, so I'm going to fasten off here. But if not, you just do the same thing where you poke, you wrap, you pull, and then you go through this one, and then you do the same on the next stitch. So wrap, pull, this one goes through this one, and then wrap, pull, this one goes through this one. It's exactly the same, and I'm just going to frog it and change colour, and then I will be back. Going to fasten off. Just to remind you how to fasten off, snip, and then what we're going to do is pull the tail through the loop. Okay, now I am going to join you in the next video to show you how to do the next round. So this is now round 3 / part 3 of our granny square, and what we're going to do is join our yarn into one of these chain spaces. Okay, so we are going to poke, we're going to make a loop with the hook, with the yarn, sorry. We're going to pull the loop of the yarn through like that. We're going to pop this little bit of yarn over here, and then we are going to chain 3. So we're going to wrap and pull, wrap and pull, wrap and pull. And if it goes a bit big like that, just pull this little one and it'll make it shorter. Now, do you remember in the corners we have to do a cluster of double crochets? So a cluster is 3, and a double crochet means we wrap, we poke, we wrap and pull, we wrap, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2. So we wrap and poke, wrap and pull, wrap, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2. Now what I will say is we need to remember that this chain 3 counts as a double crochet. Okay, so you don't need to do 3 here because we've already got this chain 3. Now what we need to do is chain 3 for the next corner. So we wrap and pull, wrap and pull, wrap and pull. And then to do our next cluster of doubles, we wrap, we poke, we wrap and pull, wrap, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2. So wrap and poke, wrap and pull, wrap, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2, wrap and poke, wrap and pull, wrap, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2. Now what we're going to do is move this stitch marker to the new corner. So this is the new corner where we have got our chain 3 there. And then you will notice on this one we actually have a bit of a gap here. It's not a chain space, but it is a gap. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a cluster into this gap here. So we are going to wrap the yarn, we're going to poke it into this gap, we're going to wrap and pull, then we're going to wrap, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2. Sorry, I realise I'm a bit close there. Wrap and poke, wrap and pull, wrap, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2, wrap and poke, wrap and pull, then we've got wrap, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2. Wrapping, when I say wrap, the technical term is actually called yarn over, okay? But I just think it's easier to remember wrap, poke, wrap, pull than it is, you know, yarn over, poke, yarn over, pull. So that's why I'm doing it like that. Then we've got to go straight into the chain space. We don't need any chains in between. So we can just wrap and poke into the chain space, wrap and pull, wrap, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2, wrap and poke, wrap and pull, wrap, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2, wrap and poke, wrap and pull, wrap, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2. Then we're going to chain 3. So remember, a chain is wrap, pull, wrap, pull, wrap, pull. Then we are going to do another cluster of doubles. So we're going to wrap and poke, wrap and pull, wrap, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2, wrap and poke, wrap and pull, wrap, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2, wrap and poke, wrap and pull, wrap, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2. And then we've got our corner made. So we move our stitch marker to show that this is our new corner, because in every space around, so here we just put a cluster, here this is a corner, so we do cluster, chain 3, cluster. Here there's a gap, but that's just a cluster. Okay, so everywhere where there is a stitch marker is a cluster, chain 3, cluster. Everywhere where there is just a gap is just a cluster of 3 doubles. Okay, so we have got wrap and poke, wrap and pull, wrap, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2. I'm going to stop saying it now and I'm just going to say double. Okay, so this is a double, so it's the same as what we've been doing the whole time, but I'm just giving it its proper name. Okay, so then we've got another double, and then we're into the chain space, so we're going to do 3 more doubles, and then we've got to chain 3. Now I'll show you that again. So you wrap and pull, and that's 1, but now I'm going to say 2 and 3, and then we're going to do 3 more doubles. So we've got 1, 2 and 3, and then we're going to move our stitch marker again, and we're going to go straight into this gap. So we've got double, we're going to do 3 doubles in this gap, 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to go into the next corner. So remember, we need a cluster, a chain 3, and then a cluster. So that's 1, 2, 3. Then we want a chain 3, so 1, 2, 3, and then we want another cluster. So we've got 1, 2 and 3, and now you see our corner is there. We're going to remove the stitch marker and we're going to move it to the corner like that. And now we've got a gap here, so we're just going to put a cluster of doubles in there. So we've got 1, 2, 3, and then we're at the end of the round. So do you remember, at the end of the round we find the third chain, so that's 1, 2, 3, we put the hook in, and then we wrap, pull, this one goes through this one, and then because I'm changing colour I'm going to fasten off, so I'm just going to fasten off there and pull that through. And then you will notice that all of your stitch markers are now in the corners. So when you do your next round, you will always do a cluster, chain 3, cluster, and then you'll just put a cluster in here, a cluster in here, and then a cluster, chain 3, cluster, 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 chain 3, cluster, 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 chain 3, cluster, 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 and then you will be fastening off. I'm not going to do another video on the granny square because I've shown you how to do the first 3 rounds, and any round after just follows exactly the same pattern. Okay, now you can use granny squares to make all sorts of things. So you can make cardigans, you can make blankets. If you just continue with these rounds, it'll get bigger and bigger and you'll have a beautiful blanket. Okay, I hope you've enjoyed these 3 parts. What I will also say is you'll have quite a few ends. You can literally just get a darning needle and just sew them in however they look best. Like this one, I would go back through here and then I'd go back through to make it tight. But yeah, I will do that in another video. Actually, I will sew the ends in another video. So now you've got your granny square to whatever size you would like it, but we need to sew in the ends. So what we're going to do is make sure all our ends are poking out the back. That's what I do. And I'm going to start in the middle. So I'm going to pull that tight. I'm going to thread my darning needle. I'm only going to show you a couple of ends because they are pretty much self-explanatory really. Right, and then what we're going to do is under the tight bit, the stitches here, I'm just going to thread it so that it goes around again. Okay. What we ideally want is the tails to be lost in the granny square. So I was going this way round, but now I'm going to change direction to make it just a little bit more secure. So I'm leaving this stitch as like a hook so that it doesn't follow me back, and then I'm going back through the other way, and then I'm just going to pull that tight. So that one is now done. So what you can do is just snip this fairly close, and when it stretches out a little bit, the end will be hidden. Okay, I'm going to get rid of that bit. No, I'm not. I thought that was an end, but it's not. I am going to pull that bit through though. I don't like it when I can see the ends. It really frustrates me. So anyway, here's another end, look. I'm going to thread my darning needle. And I'm going to go, so it's already gone one way because I crocheted over it. So now I'm just going to take it back the other way. Like that. And then I'm going to pull it out. And I'm going to give it a snip. I always leave one stitch though to anchor, okay? I will show you again because that wasn't very good demonstrating. Right, if we thread our darning needle, and then what we need to do, so here's where I fastened off, so it's not anywhere. So we're going to go all the way round this corner because we want it to be as secure as possible. And then I don't know if you can see here, but this stitch I'm going to leave as a hook, and I'm going to go back through here. So I'm changing direction, which means it'll be harder for the end to come out, but I've also hooked it so that it doesn't follow me back out. There you go, and that is how I sew in my ends. Now if you choose to change colour every round, it will look absolutely beautiful, but I'm not going to lie, you will have so many ends. So that is why generally a lot of people do granny squares. They do a few rounds in one colour before they change. But look, here I crocheted over, which just meant when I did the stitches, I held the yarn so that I was crocheting over the yarn. If you haven't done that, it doesn't matter. Just make sure your ends are just tied and secure. Right, and then we're going to go back the other way. Like that. And if you notice, I've left 2 stitches this time actually as a hook so that it doesn't follow me back through. And then I'm just going to snip that. And then I've got another white end over here, but this one is in the middle. So I'm going to show you what I'm going to do because this one is a little bit different. And you will find your own way. You might not like the way I do it, and that's absolutely fine. You'll find your own way. But I'm going to go under this stitch, and then I'm going to go under this stitch. And I'm going to pull it through. And then I'm going to go round this corner. These are like the tightest stitches in this square, so that's why I'm going back round the corner. And then I am going to use this stitch as an anchor so that it doesn't follow me back, and I'm going to go back around the corner, and I'm going to pull it out, and I'm going to give it a little snip, and then we've only got one left, which is up here. Now you are always going to have one left on the outside, so I will again show you what I would do, but again you'll find your own way, and that's absolutely fine. What I would do is go under this stitch here, and then I would go through the double like this, and then what you'll find is you'll be back at a corner. So then just go around the corner like we have for all the other ends, and then use this anchor stitch again and go back round, and then just snip it off, and that is your gorgeous granny square. I wonder what colours you'll choose to do. Perhaps if you make a granny square, what you could do is leave me a picture in the comments. That would be amazing, so that I can see what you're making. But yeah, there's a simple granny square.